Hey there, welcome back to Coding at Home with the Code Hub. All right, we were going to do this one on the camera, but it's a bit laggy, so maybe we'll skip it for today. At any rate, on Friday, in case you didn't join us, we had our second look back session where we went over the Hello Byte beginner playground. We're going to try to go over the same material again this Friday. So if you're keen to get into coding and you're checking this feed out, saying, "Oh yeah, I'd love to know how, but I don't quite know where to start," those look back sessions are actually a great place to get started. There's some real nearly one-on-one interaction with the teacher. Some days more one-on-one than others, and it's just a great way to get your questions answered and to figure out how you start coding. And it isn't necessarily that this is going to take over your life then and you're going to become a professional coder in a couple of days, but at least it'll give you an idea of what programming is. And you won't be scared off by it if at some point later in your life you're like, you know what, I have a brilliant idea for an app and I really want to build it. And now I have a little bit of an idea of where to start and at least where to start looking. So that's the goal of those Friday look back sessions. I encourage you to join. They're a lot of fun. Almost no one cries. It's a good time. Anyway, that's Fridays at 1 p.m. Feel free to go to that URL there on the Code Hub website to register. And we'll see you on the chat. So now back to this session. We've been working through. Let's go over to the iPad. We've been working through Assemble Your Camera over the last couple of weeks. If we tap into that, we'll see that we left off with this Using Your Camera section. This is where we introduced the My App class. And this is where we did a lot of our setup. And this was a lot of work. We're going to cover that a little bit more tomorrow. But on Thursday's session, we had a little detour because I was trying to get people ready for the Swift Student Challenge for WWDC. So for the Swift Student Challenge, you were supposed to design an interactive playground like we've been working in and submit it to Apple. And it was supposed to take about 3 minutes to work through. And you'd win, I think, a jacket and some pins and things. And it's a great community to be a part of, the WWDC community. It's a bunch of really interesting developers, a bunch of really smart people you can learn a lot from. And generally are a really nice bunch of folks. So it's worth joining. I went through an app and I tried to go through kind of quickly to get you ready for submitting on Sunday that just went by. And I had some feedback saying, "Oh, we'd love to go. Could we go build that from scratch?" So that's what we're going to do in today's session. So we're going to back out of Assemble Your Camera. We'll get back to that one tomorrow. And what I did was I threw together a quick template based on the Camera Create starting point called App at Home that you can get from the Code Hub Playground feed. Now, if you don't have the Code Hub Playground feed installed, we can just bring you up here quick. It's at thecodehub.ie/playgrounds. And if you visit that page, there's a big subscribe button right at the very top. There's a few icons from some of our playgrounds, like our Holiday Turtle Graphics one, our regular Turtle Graphics one, the Text Adventure one. And if you hit subscribe, it's going to add that to your version of Swift Playgrounds. So we'll say subscribe. I already subscribed to it, so it'll just tell me what I already know. So what we did was we took this Camera Create playground, which is designed only for the iPad, and it asks for permission to access the camera and photos, and we decided to alter it and make it available for both the Mac version of Playgrounds and the iPad version of Playgrounds. So you'll see here it should show up as the second playground here. It's called App at Home. It's just a starter playground for building an app in a playground. So what this is going to do is it's going to give us access to things like the space class that we saw in our camera playgrounds, which helps us lay out components on the screen. So if you don't have that already, tap the get button to get it. I'm going to go back to my playgrounds. You can see I've already downloaded that playground. So now what we're going to do is we're going to open that up. It's going to ask you, this came from a third party. Are you sure you want to open it? You'll say, yes, I want to open it. And at the very outset, we have this one page, our template. We can add pages, which will be copies of this page. And we basically have a space created, and then we add components to the space. And that's it. So if I hit run my code, of course, it's not going to run because I have some placeholders. I need to add a component here. And in the example we had on Thursday, we made a little aquarium. Say we really like fish, but we maybe don't like the hassle of having to take care of them. Or maybe we like the idea of being able to control our fish. So what we're going to do for this playground app is build our own aquarium. All right, so first things first, let's see, I want an aquarium. Well, I need an image, right, for my water because the fish have to live in water. So let's see, there's a property on space called background image. So maybe let's try that. Let's go find, let's start typing in dot background image. And then we'll use the equal sign and we'll set it to an image literal, that button there. And then we can scroll through and let's see if any of these look likely. I'm not seeing any I like for my water at the moment. All right, so we'll get into design in a second. Maybe what we'll do is we'll say this one up here, this kind of bluish one is close enough for our needs. So we'll use this blue one as our background image. Okay, cool, that's our background image. Let's add a component just so that we can, and actually let's change this. Since I put this underneath create the components, I probably don't want to leave that there because that's not what I'm doing there. I'm not creating any components. Let's move this line up beneath space. I'm going to try to keep all my styling of the space in the one place. So now if I were creating an aquarium, I have my water because that'll go on the background image. What do I need? So I probably need, I was waiting for you to shout out there. You probably need a fish, right? So let's create a variable called let, and we'll call it fish. And we want to have more than one fish, so maybe we'll call it fish 1. And we could make our fish, we have a few components available. If you remember the lights, camera code, playground, and the assemble your camera playground. We have a button type. Do we want to be able to press on the fish? Maybe, actually. All right, so we could make it an image view because we will definitely want an image to show up on the screen. Let's make it a button just so it's pressable. Maybe we won't use that, but we know that we can set an image for a button, so that'll help us out. All right, so there's our fish. Actually, I'm going to create a new section because I'm going to try to style all my components here in one particular area. Okay, that's cool. I've got my style my components comment. Now remember that means nothing to Swift. I could write any text in there. I could write out Harry Potter in its entirety if I wanted to in comments, and Swift will do nothing with it. So I have my fish 1. I'm going to style that fish here. So fish 1 dot image, and then I know that I have some images in here, so I'm going to use this image here. Give me a choice. I could pick this shark. That would be a cool fish to use, but I'm going to pick this slightly more benign fish. All right, well, we have our fish component. It's a button. We've set the image. Let's add it to the screen. So let's add fish 1 at point. Let's add it right in the middle of the screen. So point. I can pick either one of these really, but I'm going to pick the one that's the int value. So I'm going to say 0, comma 0, because that's the middle of the screen, remember? Now, because I've finally gotten rid of those placeholders, I can hit run my code. Okay, cool. There's my fish right in the dead center of the screen. Not too bad. Now, you might recall that there's another add method that we can call where we pass in a component, we pass in a point, and then we also pass in a size. I didn't do that in this case because I just figured that, you know what, the regular size of the button is fine by me. I could have actually specified the size. Maybe you want to do that. We would do that by deleting this. And then if we hit comma, I think we'll get the autocomplete. Maybe not. So if we wanted to do that, we could actually just take this out. I'll tap on here, on the parentheses, to get rid of my add. I'll create a new one. See here we have our option to take a size. So maybe let's do a size just for fun. Fish. Point is going to be the center of the screen again, so I need to create an instance of my point. 0, 0. And then we'll give it a size. We'll give it a width and a height of, say, 75 and 75. And let's see what that looks like. Okay, that's a little bit bigger. Maybe that's good. Maybe that's what I want. I want a slightly bigger fish. Now, if I were planning on adding a lot of fish and I was going to offer different types of sizes, I might think about making that point a variable, right? Because I don't want to have to type in this point x0, y0, or the size, width 75, height 75 all the time. So if I were smart, I would say, all right, well, let's create a little section here. I'm going to actually comment it so that I know what it is. I'm going to say some common sizes. And now these are variables that I want to reuse over and over again. So I'm going to use the let keyword. So I'm going to say medium size. And that's going to be equal to, oops, I didn't want to get rid of the keyboard. I'll create a size. So our medium size is that we'll use that size that we have on the screen right now for our medium size. So we have 75 and 75. Maybe we'll create a small size. So we'll create another variable. We'll do the same thing. We'll create a size. So we'll go get a size initializer. And what do you think a small size would be? Obviously, we're not going to get it bigger than 75, 75. Maybe we'll do 40 by 40. So this is great. I've defined these two sizes, small size and medium size. But now I have to make sure that I use it. So I'll take out this size here. So for my size parameter, I'll use maybe small size. We'll start out with a small fish. I'll hit run my code. Okay, cool. There's my small fish. I like that. Now this is nice because if I wanted to change this size, if I said, oh, actually I wanted to use the medium size, I can actually just change this variable that I use here in this initializer to be the medium size. And if I've added a lot of fish and I wanted to keep them kind of around the same size, this would make it much easier to change them all at once. Maybe I decided actually 40 and 40 is too small. I need to make it 50 and 50. Instead of having to change it multiple times, I can just change it the once, and all the places that refer to small size elsewhere will get that updated size. All right, so we have our fish. This isn't a very exciting aquarium so far because we need to hook this fish up. We need to get it moving a little bit. Well, I want to be able to control my fish in this particular aquarium. So how do we do that? Well, if we remember back in the assemble your camera code, well, actually, let's go back there. You don't have to go back there. Stay on your app at home, I'm going to go off to assemble my camera playground. Now we had a lot of things where we wired up our components. We wired up our buttons, particularly in the My Camera class. If you remember, when we were in the initializer, we added all those things to the screen. And then we connected the press property on our buttons to different events. So we connected it to the camera view.trigger in one case. And the really interesting one was when we connected the front back button to the switch camera. And if you remember what we did with switch camera is we actually wrote our own function that accepted a pulse parameter, which is an event sent by a button. And we basically just switched the camera view. So we set a property on the camera view, and so we said, hey, if the camera view is using the front-facing camera, flip it to not use the front-face camera. And if it's not using the front-facing camera, flip it, and we'll use the back-facing camera. So this is the kind of style that we're going to use to take advantage of that button. So we're going to close out of here, open up our app at home again. All right, now, so I need another button because I want to have a button that will make my fish, the fish is facing this way over to the left. So I want to make my fish move left when I press this button. So let's create a button, and we'll call it the left button because when we press it, we want the fish to go left. We're going to go look for the button type. We'll create a button. Okay, cool. So we've got that wired up. We're going to style our components. What do we want to do this? Let's maybe add a border to this guy. So we'll have a border that looks kind of a bit maybe sea greenish. And we'll set the corner radius as well, so it looks a little bit modern. So equals, and what do we give it? We'll give it maybe 15 on the quarter radius. Now, if we run our code now, no button's going to show up. We'll have our fish on the screen again because we need to add this to the space. This is one of your most common mistakes you're going to see is you're going to write all this amazing code. You're going to create a button or create an image view or something that you're supposed to see on the screen. And you won't see it on the screen. You'll say, oh yeah, I forgot to add it to the screen. All right, so we'll do space.add. And we want to add our left button. I'm thinking I want to add the controls up here for my app. You might want to add them somewhere else on the screen. But I'm going to add them up here. So I know that it's going to be a positive X and a positive Y. So my point is going to be, let's see. We'll say 300 and Y is 300. Now I could use the same size from up here, the small size or medium size, but I'll create my own because maybe I want my button size to be separate from my fish sizes. Let's scroll over to size. Width and a height of, let's make this 50 by 50. All right, let's try running that and let's see our button show up on the screen. Okay, all right, not too bad. Now, why is my border color, why is my border not showing up as green? Well, if I set a border color and I want a border to show up, I actually need to set a border width too. So, all right, so I forgot the border width. Let's go do that. Let's add left button dot border width. There's that property. Equals, and let's do 3, and then try running our code again. Okay, cool, that looks a bit better. You know what, it's not super clear what this is supposed to do though. So what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna set a a bit of text. I'm going to put an L on there so I know that it means when I tap it, the fish is going to go left. So after this property, I'm going to say left button dot, and we can set a title on our buttons. So I'm going to say title equals, and it's a string. So you can see I have a string literal option here in my autocomplete. I'm just going to put a capital L. We'll run our code. Okay, all right, not bad. Not bad. Now we might get into, maybe we'll get into images a little bit tomorrow. We'll work on some of our own images and add them in. But if I tap on it, nothing happens. The fish kind of stays where it is. That's fine. Because now that we've added the components to the screen, we've styled our components a little bit, now we have to wire them up. So let's leave a little comment here to say what we're doing. Make sure we know that we're wiring up that button to make the fish move. So if the left button is pressed, I want to connect that to a certain function that I write here. So let me, actually, you know what? Let's try it out. So let's say left button dot pressed dot connect. And now we have these two funny looking things. So we'll actually just press, it doesn't matter which one you press, because we're going to replace whatever's there and being highlighted in blue with this, move left. Now we get an error, which is fine because we haven't written that move left function yet. And if we tap on it, it'll say, oh, yep, unresolved identifier move left, which means I don't know anything about that. Maybe you haven't written it yet. Maybe you misspelled it. Now, if I say, okay, well, cool, let me fix that. I'll create a function. So I'll tap the func keyword down here. And I'm going to call my function move left. Now, if you remember what we just saw back in the Assemble Your Camera playground, you have to add a parameter. And the easiest way to do that is to tap on either one of these braces and pick the add parameter option. If that doesn't show up, you can just try to get your cursor inside these two parentheses, and then you can just type this stuff out. But let's see, we call these parameters here pulse. So that's the name of the parameter, and then it takes a type pulse. And then we'll have to write a bit of code in here. So let's try running our code. You know what? I'm getting the same error. It's still saying use of unresolved identifier move left. But it's weird because I defined it just down here. Well, this is a sort of byproduct of how this playground is getting run. The code is getting read top to bottom. So when we get to this point, we still know nothing about move left. We can't kind of cheat and peek ahead. So one way we could fix this is by clicking on that, tapping and holding on the whole highlighted thing and dragging it up above our wire up the button comment. And now you'll notice the red dots have gone away. If I hit run my code, everything works fine. I'm tapping my left button, but nothing's happening still. Well, it's not 100% true. What's happening is the pressed property is connecting to move left. It's actually invoking this function here, calling this function, but I haven't written any code in here. So we're not doing anything yet. So let's add a little bit of code here. In fact, what I might do is I would even comment this so I know what this does. We'll call this the move the fish functions section. Because what we'll do is we'll add some other functions in here to move the fish up and down and right as well as left. So what we did on Thursday, which was kind of quick, was we wanted to change the position of the fish because we want it to move. And the position, remember, this is 0, 0. So if we want to move left, this is minus on the x-axis. So if we want to move over 1, we would do minus 1x. And then stay the same on the y-axis, which is up and down. So let's try this out. Let's work this out. All right, so I want to move the fish. So it's going to be a property on fish 1. So let's go find fish 1. There's fish 1. We're going to use dot to access the properties. And we're going to access the position. Now, if you notice, there's a couple other interesting things we could change here too. We could change the rotation. We could change the scale, the size. But let's change the position. And we're going to assign it a new value. So we're going to create a point. And I'm going to use the parentheses to use an initializer. And I'll use this one, the x and y with ints. So the x, we just said we have to subtract 1 from x. Or subtract numbers from x, not just 1. Because we want to move left, so we're going to move this way. Well, the way to get a hold of where the fish is now on the x-axis is to use that position property on the fish. If we do fish1 dot position, inside position, there are two variables, two properties, x and y. So if we hit the dot, well, we'll see them here. Look, autocomplete shows us that we have x and y. So we want to say x. Really cool thing about Swift and other programming languages is we can do a bit of math here. So I want to subtract a number, some number, to get the fish to move to the left. So I'm going to add a minus, and it's in the autocomplete for me. So I want to, it says it's a double. Well, the nice thing is if I even just type 1 or 2, Swift will translate that to a double for me. Let's move because we saw that it was kind of hard to see the fish move when we gave too small a number. We'll use 20 for our first number. Okay, cool. So we've changed the x position. Now I want to change the y position. So I'll say, well, I actually don't want to change it, right? Because I want to have the fish stay on the same level. So fish dot position. And just like we accessed where it was on the x-axis, we can use the dot y. So this line here, we'll say, okay, we're going to assign the position to the fish. We're going to assign it to a new point. And we're going to take the old position because it will read this part first. Swift will read this part first and say, okay, where is the fish right now before I assign the new position? I'm going to subtract 20 from it. And then let me get the current y position. And I'll use that as my y parameter. So I'll create a new point. Then I'll assign it to my position of the fish. And we'll see the fish move, hopefully. So let's run our code. We'll hit the L button. All right, cool. There we go. So we got our fish moving. So not bad for a day's work. We've actually just wired up a, well, maybe not very exciting aquarium, but we've started our aquarium with a fish. So what we're going to do tomorrow is we're going to explore this a little bit more. We're going to take a look at moving this fish around, maybe implementing the move right button. And then I'm going to give you a few avenues you could explore. And you can even do that this evening if you want. You can try adding in some logic in here. Maybe you want to say when the fish gets to a certain point, you can use an if statement to say, well, if I'm at, if my X position is minus 100, turn around. So we could flip the fish or scale it or rotate it or reveal some hidden treasure. You could build a little hunting game where the fish goes around the coordinates, and when it finally hits the coordinate that you've coded in, maybe a treasure chest will pop up, or a shark. So we'll play around with that a little bit tomorrow. This is actually a fair chunk of work. As you can see, like I was talking about, you can say, all right, well, fish 1. We'll use the position dot. Well, maybe we'll say X. And what we're going to do for this condition here, and we'll go into this more tomorrow, we'll say, hey, if it's less than minus, say, 50, we're going to scale the fish up really big. Maybe it's a puffer fish and it explodes a little bit. So let's say, so fish 1 dot scale equals, and then let's say for kicks 40. So let's run our code. If we hit L, I haven't hit that condition yet. Haven't hit it. Oh man. Okay, well, I've definitely hit it. I definitely changed the scale of my fish. So maybe 40 is a little bit big. But this is the kind of thing that we'll get into tomorrow. We can add a lot of logic, the stuff that you guys have learned in Everyone Can Code Puzzles over the last couple of months. And yeah, you'll get building your own kind of cool working aquarium that behaves the way you want it to behave. All right, I hope you've enjoyed today's session. We'll be back again tomorrow. We'll be working through some more of this app stuff. Yeah, happy coding.